Hi YouTube. Today I'm going to be discussing why am I a Phyllis Hyman fan. This is my video response to video response number 1 for Cool Cats for Phyllis Hyman's YouTube group. If you haven't joined, please join. Every month I will be putting up different video log topics on Phyllis Hyman for all the Phyllis Hyman fans who want to support her. Basically, I first heard her song in 1979 when I was only 2 years old. The song "You Know How to Love Me." I remember being a baby, a little toddler, and my dad was a musician, and he used to play a lot of music. And I remember the song "You Know How to Love Me" being one of the songs that was played on the radio, as well as on my dad's record player. And I remember being 2 years old and kind of jamming to the groove. But I didn't know who in the world sung the song. Then, growing up in Northern California, where unfortunately Phyllis Hyman's music is not played very much out here on the radio stations, and I really do think that sucks. I'm sending that message out to all you smooth jazz and old school R&B stations. Y'all need to come up and play Phyllis Hyman's music more often. But during the 80s and even the early 90s, when I was growing up in the 90s, I did not hear any of Phyllis Hyman's music again until the song "Don't Want to Change the World." But again, I remember "Don't Want to Change the World." It was being played a lot out here because it was viewed as like a tech song, tech disco song, which tech disco music is very popular here in Northern California, especially in San Francisco. And I remember the song being played, but again, I didn't know who sung the song. And that was back in around 1991, 1992, 1993. It got a lot of airplay for a long time here in Northern California. And then in 1995, I had just seen her article in the Jet magazine, in the July Jet magazine. I seen that she had passed away, that she had committed suicide. And that was the first time I had ever heard her name. Phyllis Hyman was in 1995. So I had been familiar with some of her music, but never knew who the person was that sung it. I never knew her name, never knew what she looked like, never even seen her face before until I looked at that Jet magazine in July of 1995 and read the whole entire article about her, looked at her pictures, found out she was an extraordinarily very beautiful woman. And when I seen the article, I was like, man, that's sad. But then that was it. I went to the military. I went to the Army in 1997, and being stationed in, doing training in Missouri, they played a lot of Phyllis Hyman's music in the South on the radio stations, and in the Northeast areas like Chicago and Missouri, St. Louis. You would hear her music on the radio station. So in 1997, I had heard on the radio, when I was in training in the military, I had heard the song "You Know How to Love Me." It had been the first time I had heard that song since 1979 when I was 2 years old. I was like, man, I love this song so much. Who sings this song? And I went to the PX that was on base, and I seen her CD. I think Arista had put out a best of, or Buddha. It was either Buddha or Arista. They put out a Phyllis Hyman best of CD, and I seen that the song "You Know How to Love Me" was on the CD, and so I bought it. I bought it right away. I was so excited, but little did I know I was in for a big surprise. because I listened to the whole CD and I ended up loving every single song on the CD. It became the only CD that I would listen to for probably the next 4 years until about 2000, around time Jill Scott came out. And that's how I became a Phyllis Hyman fan. I actually became a fan of her music really after she passed away, and unfortunately I wasn't too familiar with her music until after she passed away. But that is what led me to becoming a fan of Phyllis Hyman. When I finally picked up that CD in 1997, I was able to buy it, and then I was stationed in Georgia, and when I moved to Georgia, I really started hearing Phyllis Hyman's music all the time. When I was stationed in Georgia and in Texas, they would play her music all the time on the radio. So I give a lot of good kudos to the South for supporting Phyllis and playing her music. And what I did notice, though, that I was very angry about in 1997 when I finally did become a Phyllis Hyman fan, I was very angry that I couldn't find any of her videos. I couldn't, I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know articles, no magazines she had been in, just nothing. I could barely find any of her original records. So I would say that it's 2009 now, and I have watched since 1995. I have watched the development of Phyllis' music, and her and information about her is becoming more more available to the public. In 1997, you can't even find a photo on the internet of Phyllis Hyman, let alone in 2000. So in 1997, that was when I made a commitment to myself that, she was a really good singer. She reminds me a lot of myself. She inspired me to not really hate myself. She inspired me to love me as I am, to love jazz music, to love being old school. It's nothing wrong with me being a jazzy queen and loving to dress up nice and being a little sophisticated and just a little old school, and that is who I am. And she was the first person who made me feel that it was okay to be that way, because growing up in Oakland, California, a lot of people criticized me for being how I was, because I was not a thug, I was not a ghetto girl. I wasn't really into that. My whole thing was more sophisticated. And so Phyllis Hyman, when I really encountered her, I was like, yeah, she's cool, and it's okay for me to be me. So I had dedicated my life to trying to preserve her memory in any way that I can, but I didn't know really where to start until probably last year when I started running into other Phyllis Hyman fans on the internet, and I was like, wow, there's other Phyllis Hyman fans on the internet? Cool. And now we're all working together to preserve her memory and bring as much of her footage and as much of her musical work to the public's attention. I hope there's more that will be done to preserve Phyllis's memory. But this is how I became a Phyllis Hyman fan, and this is how I progressed throughout the years. And I'm very impressed. From 1995 to 2009, I feel that Phyllis Hyman and her family and all of her immediate acquaintances and people that were close to her, plus her fans, we have all done a lot to keep her memory alive, and I think that she would be very impressed to see how much of her work is being exposed to the public now. So that's basically my story on how I became a Phyllis Hyman fan, and some of the reasons as to why I am a Phyllis Hyman fan. I'm a Phyllis Hyman fan because her music is fantastic, and I love jazz, and she had one of the most terrific voices on earth, and she just reminds me a lot of myself. Okay, please drop your video logs on YouTube about why you are a Phyllis Hyman fan and how you became a Phyllis Hyman fan. Thanks a lot. Bye, you guys.